Hey gang, welcome back to Real World Hot Rods. I'm Troy, and it's time to get some more garage work done. If you saw the last episode, we're working on my 1989 Ford F250 today. If you saw the last episode, and I'll put a little card to it up above, I bought this thing a few days ago in Humboldt, Kansas. Went down, it's a 89 Ford F250, 174,000 miles. I wanted a truck to do truck things, wanted a 3/4 ton, wanted a big block, and I found this thing for $4,000. Drove it home, absolutely drove like a dream. It's one of the best driving Ford twin I-beam trucks I've ever sat in. And it's crazy how straight and rust-free this thing is, but it does have a few issues. The first issue that we're going to work on, and honestly the biggest one, is a hot start issue. When it's cold start, it's ice cold right now. Well, it's not ice cold. Hell, it's 85 degrees out already in Kansas City. But if I got in it right now, it hasn't been driven, it'd light right off. But if I took it and drove it for about 10 or 15 minutes, it'd sit there and go rawr, rawr, like it's got a dead battery. And whoever had this before had been chasing it. It's got a nearly new battery. It's got a new starter solenoid, got a new alternator. I think it's got a pretty new starter under it from the little bit that I looked. But this is a common problem on big block Fords, which is starter heat soak. And I said in the last video that I'd never had a big block Ford with this problem, and I lied because I got thinking about it and I remembered. Back in the 80s when I was in high school, my parents had a tree service, and we had a 75 Ford F350 dually flatbed that had a bunch of tree spraying equipment on it. And that truck had a 360 FE big block in it. This is the first 385 series big block I've ever had. So I've obviously never had that problem with those, but that truck, after the engine got hot, it wouldn't restart a lot of the time. So I mean, and I'm embarrassed to even say this, but like if we were going to stop for lunch during the day, or if I was going to stop for lunch during the day when I was out by myself, I'd have to park it so it was on a little bit of a downhill, so I could get in it, drop the clutch, put it in third gear, bump start it, light it right off. The type of starter we're about to put on this thing didn't exist anyway. So did some research, validated that was a problem, and well, now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do about it. So let's go inside the garage. It's time to start getting to work. Okay, so now we're in my garage and I'm at my work table, and I told you that I was going to look around and find the fix for this. And I did. And I want to be transparent here because I am a user of AI. I use AI a lot in my regular business, and so it's only natural to use a little bit for my car stuff. And so I sat down with AI and I described the situation. I said, my diagnosis, my theory is that the starter is heat soaking. Please research this. I use Claude, by the way, and in about a minute, Claude came back and said, yep, that's a very common problem with these 460s. And Claude actually went through and gave me the fix for it. Now, I was pretty sure that was a problem. Wasn't 100% sure what was available. When we had that old spray truck back then, the only starters you could get for a Ford big block was just the old stock starter. So I did some research with Claude, and Claude actually gave me the fix and even the instructions for implementing the fix. So we're going to give this a shot and hope it works. I'm pretty sure it will. Here's the fix. By the way, this is an AC-Delco box. The fix is to buy a new permanent magnet gear reduction starter, which is actually designed for a later model Ford 460. I believe it's 92 when they switched these. I got this one. This one is actually for a 1994 Ford F350 or F250 with the 460. And so I've got to install this. in place of the original starter, which is it's the old direct drive starter. And then, and by the way, Claude said there's two possible fixes. One is to install this starter, and this is a brand new starter by AC-Delco, and this cost me shipped, I think, about $125. And I looked around for some other brands. I actually looked for a Motorcraft. Motorcraft would have been $250. So this one's again, this is brand new. It's not a rebuild. $125 from Rock Auto, and it is an AC-Delco, so it's, you know, it's not from the Chingwon Corporation, so I can feel pretty good that it's good quality. And then the second fix, it said, is get a starter blanket, a starter heat shield that wraps around there. And once you've got the starter installed, you do it after the starter's installed, you wrap it up like this, and it's got some stainless steel fasteners on it, and you put it on. And the idea is to protect the starter from the heat of the exhaust manifolds. Well, I like to overdo things, so I went ahead and got both. I got the heat shield, and I got the permanent magnet starter. So we're going to pull the old starter off of the truck, and when I get it off, I'm going to lay it side by side and show you the difference. These are substantially lighter than the old style starters, which is a little bit of an advantage. I'm going to go ahead and knock that off of there, and I'll get it in here on the bench, and I'll show you the difference. And then I'll show you, by the way, there's a little bit of wiring that has to change too to be able to install this. So, and Claude found all that. And by the way, Claude didn't make this stuff up. Claude actually linked me to different websites, specifically dedicated to these trucks and some of these things. So Claude helped me find this stuff, but Claude didn't invent any of it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that other starter off, and then I'll show you the difference between the two. Okay, and obviously the first thing we're going to do, and this is pretty much any time you're messing with electrical systems on a car or a truck, disconnect the ground cable on the battery. Not a big deal. And again, if you look here, 825. So this starter, or this battery rather, was replaced in August of 2025. And when we do this, by the way, one of the things that we're going to be doing, by the way, is we're going to be changing the wire. As you can see, this cable here goes over to the battery terminal on the starter solenoid. This cable here, this heavy cable here, comes off of there and goes down to the solenoid on the starter. Yes, Fords have two starter solenoids. Derek on Vice Grip Garage calls this a steel me junction. He's not 100% wrong. But this heavy cable right here is actually going to move over to this is the switched terminal for the starter. This is the constant hot. We're actually going to move this cable over to the constant hot. Then we're going to run another wire from the switched down to a place on the new starter, which, by the way, is where that pigtail comes off of. So I'll show you how I do all that. Okay, so yeah, here you can see the starter I'm taking off, and yeah, it's pretty new. One little degree of difficulty that Ford gives you, probably just because it was fun for somebody to come up with it, is that the starter bolts go in from two different directions on this thing. This one goes in conventionally right from here. This one up here, the top bolt, actually threads in from the back side and threads into the starter motor. And I don't know why, it's dumb, but that's what Ford decided to do. So yay, Ford. That's what makes these fun. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pull that. By the way, one thing I kind of dig about this, and just looking under it, by the way, you can see it's, it's got your standard big block Ford oil seepage, and kind of marking its territory. One thing that's nice about this, it's so high up off the ground that I don't need a creeper or a jack or anything to get under it, and a little extra safety margin, stuff I never used to think about when I was younger, but I think about now.
I want you to see what I'm dealing with here. I am still trying to figure out how to get anything on that back bolt head. And look at this. If they had put the bolt in conventionally, this job would just be a breeze. Boom, boom, you're done. As it is, it's going to be a friggin' nightmare. If anybody knows the Ford engineer that designed this, go kick him in the nuts about 15 times for me, would you please?
The old starter is out, and it is a Chinese reman. Don't know if that was part of the problem or not, but this is the age-old Ford starter design. I want you to see the conglomeration of tools that I had to use to get that abortion of a starter bolt out. Will you look at this crap? We got a 1-inch wobble extension. We got a 3-inch wobble extension. We got a 10-inch wobble extension. And then finally, we got a 12-inch regular extension. That is what it took to get that damn starter bolt out of there. Seriously, engineers are terrible human beings. They have to be to do this stuff. But all right, I'm going to take this other starter, get it on the bench, and you can let you kind of look at the differences. If you look, you can see the difference in the size in between the two, and this one's about half of the weight of this one, which is going to make this one a hell of a lot nicer to reinstall. Okay, so I had to open up the terminal for the main cable, the main hot cable, with a unibit on a drill down underneath of it, because as you can see, the terminal size is different. So I did that. Now I have to make my wire that goes from the starter terminal to this. It's got a pigtail on it, and obviously I'm going to say on the 94 to 97s, there's a little bullet plug that goes in there. On this one I don't have that. So I'm going to have to make a wire. So we're about to make our jumper wire, or our, I guess you'd call it our trigger wire. And it comes to this terminal right here, and then it'll come off of the switched terminal on the fender starter solenoid. And I got these ring terminals from Dorman. Normally I don't like pre-insulated ring terminals, but I gotta be honest, these are kind of cool because the insulation is heat shrink, so you can crimp it and then heat shrink it down. You don't need a separate heat shrinker. So not going to be able to show you this on my phone, and you're probably sitting there going, well, Troy, I know you have a big camera. Why aren't you using that? Because I was so smart as to let the battery run completely dead on it, so it's charging right now. So you're just going to have to deal with phone video, but I'll do my best here. Got her crimped really good, so now I'm going to take it and get my heat gun on it and get it heat shrunk. And there's your result. That looks pretty good. Honestly, it looks pretty factory. I'm using 10 gauge wire for this. The instructions I found on how to do this online said you needed a minimum of 12 gauge. I had 10 gauge red, and I have a tendency to overbuild things anyway. So okay, that's the first step we've got to do to get everything ready. I've cut myself a bunch of wire. I cut myself about 4.5 feet of wire because I want to have too much rather than too little. I'm going to fasten it down at the bottom of the starter, then run it up, and I'll cut it to length when I get to the fender solenoid. One more thing I want to do here, though. What made the job of removing this starter such a bitch is that this bolt comes in from the backside. It comes through from the bell housing side, and that'd be all right, except there's no room to get to anything there. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put a stud in here. And what that's going to do, it should make installation a lot easier because I'm not going to have to fight with threading in a bolt blind. So we'll see. But yeah, I got the stud in there, and it's just finger tight. It doesn't really need to be turned any more than that. When I go ahead and put the bolt on, that's going to do that. So, all right, I guess time for talking is done. The time for doing is now.
Okay, I've got the starter up in there, I've got the stud poking through there, and now I'm going to show you this conglomeration of crap and how it goes and where it routes to, because you still need it to put the nut back on. We've got the short 6.916 socket now, because it's a 9/16 head nut. The 1-inch wobble extension, the 3-inch wobble extension, which connects to a 12-inch wobble extension, which kind of goes around and through, and then that finally connects to a 12-inch straight extension. Sorry, this video sucks. And then I'm going to put my ratchet on that. On the cable end here, the original cable end that we're going to reuse, had to open up the hole there with a unibit because the hole was a 1/4 inch and the stud on the starter here is 5/16. So I'll go ahead and put that on there now. Now it's time to wire up the solenoid end. I've taken this cable off of this post and moved it over here. That's what they said to do. It has to do with the starter triggering on and off, and then I'll put this on the trigger wire. Again, these starters are wired a little bit differently than the older style. The older style just had the one cable. This has a hot wire and a trigger wire. Here's what's funny. I pretty much nailed it on the length of that wire at 4.5 feet. Man, I was just going by guess and by golly. We are going to use the same type of Dorman terminal here with the heat shrink insulation, which, as hot as it is today, I don't know that I could probably just set it here on the radiator support for a couple minutes and heat shrink. By the way, here's a tip. When you're working in the hot sun, make sure you leave your wrenches and stuff, your chrome wrenches, right in the sunlight so they'll be hotter than a firecracker when you go to grab them. So all right, I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you the final wiring. Okay, so there's how she's wired up. Multiple groups, and there are a couple of commercial websites too that said that was the way to do it. So I got it wired up. Now a couple more things. I'm going to do a fire test, hook the battery up, make sure nothing starts smoldering, and then I'm going to try and start the truck. Hopefully that works. Then if that works, then I'll shut it off, put my heat shield on, zip strip the little red wire to the battery cable, and then I'll take it for a test drive. Ha 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 ha! Okay, we have starters. So now I'm going to go downstairs, zip strip my wires together, put my heat blanket on the starter. I'll show you that, and then take it for a test drive. All right, moment of truth. Just took it on about a 15-minute drive, which is plenty enough to get it warm. Let's see if it starts. Yes, sir. All right, we can count that a success. Yep. A couple things. This job was kind of a bitch. You can probably tell that from my face. It didn't have to be. It was that, honestly, that one starter bolt is what really gave me the trouble. Also, I decided not to install the heat shield. And I'll tell you why. It's if I was going to install it, I should have put that on the starter when it was off of the vehicle. Shame on me. I thought it'd be easier to do on, and it was not by any means. So if you're going to do this job and put the heat shield on it, do it with the starter on the bench. Make sure you trim it so that it doesn't contact any of the electrical terminals. But and the other reason was, honestly, I wanted to see if it would do. If it would start even without the heat shield, or if the starter would fix it. Starter fixed it, which makes sense. I mean, that was how they re-engineered them in 1994. So that is how you do the starter conversion on one of these things. I'll going to do some more stuff to this truck. The next thing, and I'm not going to do it today, the next thing is going to be clean up this interior. And I will put the part numbers that you need that I used in the tool list down in the description. So, yep, more to come on this one.